We've all been there. Heartbreak, loss, and the struggle to move on. But few have laid it all bare like Chris Aiken. In Little Victories, Chris shares his raw and powerful journey through a brutal divorce. Every painful moment, every emotional battle, and every step toward healing is captured in this honest, unfiltered story. If you've ever been through a tough breakup, Little Victories is the guide you need. Get your copy today at chrisaiken.net or on Amazon.
Good Monday afternoon to you all.
Hello, sir. How are we?
How are you?
I'm good. I know you have a ton of stuff on the schedule. Can I interrupt before you get into any of it and just start with a happy song?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is a happy song, one that I found just the other day. I thought especially for you. You ready for this?
All right.
Here you go. Check this out.
Back up. No, you can keep him down because he's tough. Yeah, he's the toughest around. Sleepy Joe was like the walking dead. He had to go, knock on my love and over her head. Oh, can't you see me standing here? I got my back against the voting machine. He ain't the worst that I've seen. Sometimes his tweets can be mean. Better vote Trump, Trump. Gotta vote Trump. Better vote Trump, Trump. Gotta vote Trump.
Anyway, it goes on and on.
Yeah, it's really funny that you play that because there was another one that's really well produced,
right?
that was put out in like 2016, and it's
Okay.
the same song. I don't know if it's the same people, but
Might be.
it's really, really good and like really well produced, and like the music is great. And, like it sounds like Van Halen was actually playing that song.
Sure.
And it's amazing. But what's funny about you playing that today, of all days, is that we used to open up the Triv show with that Trump jump song all the time.
Right.
And so it was literally like, if I had nothing to play because I'm stupid and couldn't come up with an original thought in my head sometimes, that's what I would open up with.
Right. 4 minutes handled.
Yes. And it would get Triv in a good mood because, he was a Trump fan, and it was perfect.
Right.
But the reason I say it's funny that you play it today, shut up, John. Why is he starting already, man?
Because we dared touch his most sacred of bands.
Oh, he loves Van Halen?
Oh yeah, his bands are Dream Theater 1, Van Halen 2, and there are no other bands, I don't believe.
Before we get to this show started,
Yeah.
John, if that is your favorite band, is a Van Halen. My wife, 1 month before we started dating, was up in the hotel room of one Eddie Van Halen, drinking his wine while he was talking to a Wolfie on the phone when he was a young kid. And he came out in nothing but a bathrobe that was wide open and began to make out with my now wife.
Huh.
And then she drank too much of his wine and became obnoxious and got kicked out of the hotel room. and then a month later, she started dating me. So, yeah, she went from Eddie Van Halen to Seth. How about her luck?
What an upgrade.
How about that for an upgrade?
Well, that's all right. I could tell you stories about John on his knees crying by seeing Eddie Van Halen, by having Eddie Van Halen walk up next to him.
He's that kind of guy?
Oh, yeah. He was crying like a little bitch.
Wow.
Because that's what dreams are made of.
I'll put you on a high platform, man. Yeah, look, my wife, the last guy she kissed before me was Eddie Van Halen. I got Eddie Van Halen sloppy seconds, dude.
She didn't give him that tongue cancer, did she?
Possibly.
I shouldn't say that. She left me this very nice birthday message yesterday. Your wife, your kid.
Yeah.
And here I am accusing her of giving Eddie Van Halen tongue cancer.
My friends are calling in shortly. They're trying to figure this out.
Well, it's very hard. Click.
Well, they're not podcast people, so, It was your birthday yesterday. Happy birthday.
Thank you. The big 5'6". Because I'm old.
That's crazy, man. Now, what's sad is I definitely look worse than you do, and I'm not even 50 yet.
I'm starting to look old. This fucking Santa Claus beard I'm sporting really adds the age to me. That is for sure. So
yeah, but I've noticed with fat guys like us, the beard keeps the fat from our face from protruding too much. So it actually
does. It does.
Helps. The beards definitely help.
Although the big fat face, man, I look like I've lost 40, 50 pounds when I shave the beard.
Really?
So I do it like 3-4 times a year, and then I could just lie and say, "Oh, I've been on this great diet."
I'm not sure. I'm trying to think if I've ever seen you. I'm sure I have, but I don't remember the last time I saw you with a shaved face.
Probably, I mean, not all the way shaved, but I usually shave it down to a goatee, but this stuff here hides or makes me look older.
I think I saw the goatee when we were at the, was it Michael Franzese thing? You didn't have the goatee there?
Mm-hmm. You know what? I'll shave it down for Wednesday because it's all itchy anyway, so I'll shave it down for Wednesday's show.
It's amazing. So today, before we have Jim Renacci coming up in a little bit, I don't know if they're going to be able to join us or not, but they're trying.
Okay.
But I'm going to talk about it anyways because today is the day.
Yeah.
It was 3 years ago today that Triv passed away. So 3 years ago to the day that Mike Trivisonno passed away. And let me tell you, my friends, that was a hell of a day in my life and a lot of people's lives. at least that live around here in Cleveland area. And I mean, if you're a Cleveland radio fan at all, you would understand that that was like the biggest loss that we've had. One of the biggest losses that we've ever had in radio here.
Sure.
And I remember that day like it was yesterday, even though I've gone through a lot since then.
Yep.
Comas and loss of legs and limbs and whatever. It was I remember sitting there and I was talking to him about an event that we had coming up, and I was telling him everything that was going on. We're on the phone. I remember what studio I was standing and talking to him, and all he said was, "Let me go, let me go." And it wasn't unusual for him to kind of like be short on the phone with me and hang up on me, and so I didn't think much of it. But then I thought of something else I needed to talk to him about. I called him back, and there was nothing. And I, again, didn't think much of it. I went outside to smoke, and I was standing outside, and my phone rang, and it was his wife, who proceeded to tell me that she found him on the floor of the garage.
Eeh.
And, I mean, this is literally minutes after I had talked to him.
Wow.
And he was being taken to the hospital, I guess, and they got there pretty quick, from what I understand. I went back in, and I was freaking out. And I got upstairs, and I was talking to people up there, a couple people in like management. I wasn't trying to spread the word around about anything that was going on. But somebody needed to know because we were getting close to showtime.
Right.
And maybe it might have been 20 minutes, 30 minutes later, I got another call. And the first call that I got was that they thought he was going to be okay.
Okay.
They say they're in the queue, and I don't see them at all.
Not in this queue.
I'm assuming I sent them the right link, right?
I guess. I don't know. I'll email you the link again.
Because then Jim Renacci's going to have a problem finding it. But the next call that I got was that he was going to be, sounded like he was going to be all right. And then probably 10 minutes after that call, I get another one saying that he had passed.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I remember just sitting there in the studio, just kind of, I didn't know what the hell to do.
Right.
I didn't know who to tell. I didn't know what the hell to say. I didn't know what the hell was going on. And I remember taking my boss in to like a production studio along with Carmen, and I said, "He's gone." And they both looked at me like, "What do you mean he's gone?" And I'm not gonna lie to you, dude. I was breaking down, man. I had tears flowing, and
well, he was more than just a host for you.
yeah.
For you, he was a mentor, man. He was a father figure in a lot of ways.
Yeah, in a ton of ways. And I sat there. I didn't know what the hell to do. And then I told people what was going on. And then it was a mad scramble to figure out what was going to be happening next. Because literally it was showtime.
Right.
And I went in the studio. We had to get like something on the air. So we played something. And so we figured out what the hell we're going to do. Then all of a sudden, now this is no lie, my phone started ringing again, and I pick it up, and it was like Scene Magazine, dude.
Wow. They got
we
the
hadn't
word
gone
that
on the
quick.
air yet. And somebody was already, some of these local stations and magazines were calling me on my cell phone, which I don't know how they even got. They have a way of finding shit out, I'll tell you that.
I'm sure they got ins in the hospitals and stuff when somebody famous in town.
They must have, because there's Sandy. They must have, because I didn't know who this was that was calling me from C Magazine. I never talked to anybody before. And he's like, "Can you confirm that Triv has passed?" And I said, "I don't know what the hell you're talking about."
Right.
I hung up on because I don't want to say yes. I don't know. I mean, I just found out like 10 minutes before.
Right. And you might and the other thing too is that it may not have been true what you found out either. It probably hadn't been long enough to know for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking in the span of less than an hour. I found out that he was found in the garage, taken to the hospital. He was going to be okay, and then all of a sudden he wasn't okay, and he was gone.
Yeah, but we've all been through, well, this happened, and then an hour and a half later, 2 hours later, it's totally different from what actually did happen.
Right.
So, yeah, I could see where you wouldn't want to tell anybody anything at that point. Plus, then, not even to get into the fact of all the station bullshit that you'd have to deal with as well.
And
if you were wrong, God forbid, if you were wrong
God,
and you told Scene Magazine, oh, yeah, Triv died, and then he didn't.
I remember, to talk about how shitty the management there was, one of the first things out of their mouth when I told them what was going on was, "Oh, don't worry, Seth, you have a job there. Don't worry. You have a job. Don't worry. I know the first thing through your mind is going." I said, "That's not the first fucking thing that's going through my mind. The first fucking thing going through my mind is I lost a friend and one of the greatest radio people of all time. And we have to go on the air."
Right.
I wasn't worried about my damn job. And of course, they lied about that anyways.
Of course.
Coming on today, we only have like 15 minutes before Jim Renacci is going to come on, but this was an important day for me to talk to a couple of like his closest friends, and honestly, now my closest friends, people that were there with Triv for a very long time, and then have been through hell and back helping me with my issues. So let's bring them on. Sandy and Jim. People might know. Hello.
Hello.
People might know Jim. First-time caller Jim. Called every single day, but he was always first-time caller.
Yep. Didn't matter.
And Sandy, I know that you guys.
Go ahead.
You guys were his closest friends, and so I wanted to bring you on today to talk about the importance of Triv and the loss that we suffered on this very day.
It is a sad day. I let Jim read my Facebook post, and he teared up, and nothing's the same. We miss him so much. He was such the glue. I don't know if I'm going to make it through this. I'm just saying. We've known him since 1989, right? Mike was doing morning radio on
NCX, WNCX, those guys in the morning. And I was the caller there. And he was going out to the fights. And he invited me down to the studio one day. First time I ever met him, he invites me to go out to Vegas for 2 weeks. We're going to cover the Tyson Ruddock fight and then go down to Tucson, Arizona and cover the Indians for their last year when they were in Tucson.
Wow.
And you actually became his producer at one point.
Yeah. After that.
I guarantee you didn't get as much crap as I got because you were probably good at your job.
That we know he should have with that little button thing. The record.
Oh, that's right. You got to tell that story.
Steve Wynn. I think this might have been the second fight. I'm trying to get Steve Wynn. I'm talking to his people all week. And it's finally fight night. Friday night, I think it was. And these people come up to me and go, "We'll give you them for 5 minutes." So I go over to them like, "Wait, we got Steve Wynn for 5 minutes. We got Steve Wynn for 5 minutes." And I brought my cassette recorder from my home stereo. And when you recorded, you had to press forward and record at the same time. And when I did that, the record button didn't stay down. So we not only talked to Steve Wynn for like 5 minutes, we talked to him for like a half friggin' hour. At one point, we got interrupted. Oh, I can't think of this name of the boxer. He was a middleweight champion. He wanted to bet $500,000 on Tyson, and Steve Wynn had to okay the bet.
Wow.
And that recording never actually happened because it never was recorded.
Nope, I got all kinds of other recordings, but not from Steve Wynn.
See, if that was me, he would have ripped my arms off as he's yelling, "Seth!" And then,
Your fingers would have been chopped off.
yeah. Forget about a leg. I wouldn't have had anything to record with ever again.
The best thing was I told him like 2 minutes after Steve Wynn walked away.
See, now, what I love about Jim and Sandy is that not only were they his close friends, but again, like I said earlier, they became my close friends. And we actually, Triv used to like going to Goldie's in Strongsville on Pearl Road every Sunday. And it was such a fun thing to go watch him and see how he interacted with people at the restaurant and how he'd screw with Megan, the waitress, and
Gay.
And it was just such a fun time. And I felt honored that he actually started inviting me to go. I mean, to me, that meant like so much that I was actually able to go on a Sunday morning and hang out with all of you guys. And it made me feel like part of the group a little bit. And we still, to this day, when we can, meet up at least a few times a month to go to Goldie's and at the same time and same waitress. Yeah. And, it's nice to have some of that.
It is very. And I would always like to see people's faces when they would hear his voice and they'd be like, "Is that Mike Trivisonno? Oh my God." That was epic.
Yeah, because if you didn't know what he looked like, as soon as you heard him talk to anybody,
love him or hate him. Love him or hate him.
And most of the people loved him. Let's be honest.
And then we became such good friends that Mike is our son's godfather.
Wow.
So.
Let me ask you, somebody that didn't know him real well, how different was he off the air from on the air? Because on the air, I mean, you guys are saying fun and funny and that. Those are not the thoughts that I have when I think of Mike. I think of Mike as ripping somebody's head off when they said the wrong thing on the air. It sounds like you guys had a very different relationship with him.
Well, a lot of that was the show. Mm-hmm. You don't want to agree with everybody. You rip their head off.
You want to keep that going.
Keep the callers calling.
Love them or hate them. The haters always called.
I had friends of mine that knew that I was friends with him. I'd be at a party or something. One guy would like him and one guy hated him. And they'd come up to me with the same question. And I go, that's exactly what he's doing. He wants you to listen and you to listen. And the one that hates him, you listen more than the guy that likes him.
Right.
And another funny thing is when we were all together, sometimes it would kind of be like a radio show because he would just talk about, sports or whatever. And it was awesome. We just loved being with him and everyone.
Yeah. Some of my favorite, off the air times were he would, as Jim, you guys know, 6:15 in the morning, he'd call you and go, "What are you doing?" Yeah. And just hearing that voice at 6 o'clock in the morning was crazy. But for me, I know how much he hated me at times. And then I know, though, that there were times on a Saturday morning where he would sit there and he'd call me at 8 o'clock in the morning and we'd talk for 2 hours about radio. And, again, he made you feel special and he made you feel like a friend. And that was pretty cool because he was such a larger than life figure.
Yep.
That being close to him was amazing.
Yeah. Well, like me, I was a caller. And he invites me down to the studio and says, "Hey, I need someone to go out and help me in Vegas. You want to come out with me for 2 weeks?"
And it just so happened that Jim was in a driving accident at work. And the next morning, he couldn't sleep in the waterbed. He had to sleep on the couch.
That's the original.
And I hear this awful sound. I get woken up. Yeah. So Mike is reading, which I find this out later. I open up the door to go outside and to the hallway, and Jim's standing there at the window with the phone, and cordless phone in his hand, singing 30 Days in the Hole, and that's what woke me up. I thought he was in pain, and that's how they met. That was the original meeting.
Joe Burdick is that's crazy. Joe Burdick is actually checking in and says, when he liked you, you knew it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. You know, I talk about it a lot on here when I talk about Triv, is that Triv was like the center of a universe, and then when he died, all of a sudden everybody started splitting up and out and away from, and it makes me sad. It makes me so happy to think about the friendships that I have, especially like with you guys who have been unbelievable to me and my family since what happened to me. And I consider you guys more than friends. You guys are family to me and my wife and my daughter.
We love Molly.
And so it's sad that everything kind of split the way that it did, but it makes me so happy to think about all the really good things that came out of a radio show and a friendship that I have with you and Billy Fisher and guys like that. It's sad that some of them have drifted away.
I know.
I thought
we didn't do anything to deserve any of it.
Right. And, you know, it's sad when those kind of things ended.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah, certain people were accepted when Pep died.
Yeah.
After he remarried.
Yeah.
You know, so we all accepted a lot, and we loved it.
Yeah.
We don't have it anymore, and it saddens us.
It's definitely it's a tough day.
It is.
When you think about 3 years goes by so quickly.
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember where I was talking about it before you came on when I found out and who I found out from. And having to go on the air with that show that day, and the radio will never be the same with him gone.
Nope.
Right before he called you, he called me and told me just because we were going to barbecue steaks.
Yeah.
That weekend.
On Saturday. And he wanted to use charcoal and didn't have a grill, so I had a charcoal grill. And he called me up that morning and says, "Hey, I just got the bag of charcoal. So we're ready to go."
Wow.
Didn't he get those steaks from Mortosh?
Yeah, he did.
Please.
I like your shirt, though. Your shirt is the best.
Thank you. We love it.
I'm glad. I'm glad. I love you guys. I'm glad you guys got to call in today because.
Yeah, I'm glad we finally figured it out.
No,
Trevor would have been making fun of you for that one, Jim.
Well, I tried to go on
the
the
iPad.
iPad, and it asked me to make an account. And then I finally made an account, and it won't.
We couldn't get in.
There's no way to put
and then
your
you
link
sent the
in.
link, and voila.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough for calling in and talking about Triv, and we'll have to have you back on at some point.
Okay.
But I know it's a tough day for
you.
everybody, but we'll be thinking about you guys and thinking about Triv today. So
Definitely.
And it was good seeing you yesterday.
Same here.
And if anybody ever wants to come out to Goldie's, you know where to find us.
At 10 o'clock
Strongsville,
on
Pearl
Sundays.
Road, 10 o'clock on Sunday mornings. It's a Triv thing. Come on out.
Yeah, you can call the restaurant and see if there's a reservation for Sandy Scott made. And then you'll know.
And then if there is, come on out. So
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thank you again, and I will talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Good talking to them. Sometimes you get just tongue-tied. You don't know what to say
Right.
on a day like today
Well, it's
because it's sad.
just because it's more emotion. You know, you're talking from the heart instead of from the head, and it's a different sort of communication.
I see Jim Renacci at the bottom, but I don't see him.
Yeah, no camera yet. Not sure what's going on there.
This is actually Triv's flannel. I forgot to tell them that.
Oh yeah.
was lucky enough that his family did give me a few of his flannel shirts, and
Sure.
it's kind of funny that they fit me. It's just but it's cool to have them. It's cool to have something. And I actually have you've never been here, but I have like a huge picture.
Well, I've seen the picture because somebody gave it to you, right? Like somebody gifted it to you?
Oh, yeah, they gave it to me when I got this house.
Yeah, I remember seeing the pictures of it. What are we having trouble?
Apparently we are, but I'm not. What do we do?
Why can't anything ever just work?
Nothing ever works. And then I just get told that I have to reschedule people. This is just one hell of a day. This is a good day. So what do we do? You want to? Well, we can talk about politics.
Well, let's take a break and see if Jim comes on, because I don't want to start something for like 30 seconds and then have it fall apart. So why don't we do this? Let's play a commercial here or two, and then we'll come back and see where we're at. All right?
Sounds good.
All right, hang out, everybody. It is the Seth Williams Show.
Assured Window Cleaning specializes in window cleaning, chandelier cleaning, blind cleaning, gutter cleaning, and post-construction cleaning. In business since 1947, Assured Window Cleaning has proudly been serving its customers in Cleveland for 75 years. As a family-owned and operated business, Assured Window Cleaning has built their reputation on trust and delivering the best results possible. When you need window cleaning services for your home or business, contact Assured Window Cleaning. We're one of the top window cleaning companies in all of Cleveland for both residential and commercial. Visit our website today at www.assuredwindowcleaning.com or call us at 440-989-0122 for a quote. And remember, everybody knows Tony. Contact Assured Window Cleaning today.
There's plenty of places to experience the Seth Williams Show, but if you want all the content, you need to join us on Minds. Get all the live episodes of the show every Monday and Wednesday from 4 to 5:30 p.m. Get the special bonus footage every Wednesday from 5:30 to 6 p.m. Get bonus content from Seth and Chris as it's produced. It's only $4.99 per month, so don't wait. Sign up today. Visit us at www.minds.com/Seth Williams Show.
And if I do say so myself, Seth,
yes,
we have been killing it on the mines. Those segments have been fantastic.
Those have been great. Yeah, nobody's watching them, but they've been really good. He's rebooting his computer now as we speak.
Okay, all good. Yeah, no, the mines the other day with the Shamu stuff.
Yeah, that was really funny.
That whole that's the funniest part is like the first hour and a half feels like an hour and a half. That second half hour, tell me it doesn't feel like it's gone in like 2 seconds. We look
so
up and
quickly.
it's like, oh, you got to go do some work. Yeah, the mine stuff is big. And this ain't a sell. If you don't want it, don't get it. But
don't get it. But I have fun doing it, so that's fine.
It's a lot of fun, and it is way dirtier than this half, if it can possibly be way dirtier than this half.
Tom is there. He says, I felt like I lost one of my best friends. Never knew him personally. Met all you guys a couple of times at Trivis, Vegas shows.
Uh-huh.
Tom, I'll be contacting you soon also. But thanks for listening today, Tom. I'll be contacting you shortly.
Cool.
We do have Mr. Renacci now.
All right.
Let's bring him on. It's our election preview show, if you will. And
That's
Mr.
right.
Jim Renacci, former congressman, businessman, and podcast host. How are you, my friend?
Good. How are you all doing?
Good. I don't know if you're aware of this. Today you were good friends with Mike Trivisonno.
I was, absolutely.
Today's 3 years to the day that he passed away. Today.
Oh my goodness, I was not aware of that. Boy,
Can you believe
and I
it's been
miss him
3 years?
every time. I think when I'm driving, and I think I got 1100 on. I certainly miss him.
Yeah, and it's radio hasn't been the same. I know you do some stuff on 1100 still, so that's good. But yeah, it's 3 years to the day.
Wow.
Can't believe it's gone that quickly. So. All right, so we are going to save the world is what we have to do now. Not just the country, but it's time to save the world with this election that's coming up. Do you agree with that?
Well, this is definitely an historic election. I mean, there is no doubt about it. We have a president, a former president running for re-election. It's only happened one other time back in the late 1800s. We have an African-American female running against him, which is also historic. I mean, it's an interesting race, and wow. It's neck and neck, and as I keep hearing, it's very close as we speak. Probably going to be decided by 30 or 40,000 votes in 7 states.
Now, Jim, let me start right there since you opened that door. Do you really believe the polling? I mean, I saw President Trump over the weekend on the Rogan podcast, and he exactly said that the polls are nonsense. I don't know that that's true, but how much stock do you, as somebody that's worked in the game, give the polls? And why should we believe the polls when there's so few people, regular people, that can ever say that they were polled?
Well, you're exactly right. And look, I think in the old days, the polls were very important. They were landlines. People were willing to give their vote and talk about it. Today, we have so many sources. Landlines are gone. You got to get cell phones. You got to communicate via text messages. It's just not the same old polls that it used to be, which is why I sometimes wonder. And I can tell you that people that do get polled that I've talked to, they tell me they put in the wrong information just to screw things up, which is kind of shocking as well, because then you got to wonder whether the polling is accurate or not.
Also, I wonder, there are a lot of people that don't want to come out when it comes to Donald Trump. He's probably one of those polarizing candidates we've ever had in any kind of race around the country. And I think a lot of people are intimidated to even say that they're voting for him. People don't want to put bumper stickers out. People don't want to put signs out because they're afraid of the way people are going to treat them. Do you think that's true?
I do believe that. And by the way, I think there's a reverse technology compared to 2016. In 2016, like me, I came out and endorsed former candidate Trump, and I was chastised by everybody. So a lot of people didn't want to come out. They didn't want to say they were voting for Trump, but clearly they did. I think we have a little bit of a different situation now in 2024, and that's that I think there are people that are afraid to say they're not going to vote for Trump. And that's a whole nother situation that may bring the polls into a whole different place. I mean, I have talked to solid Republicans who've told me they are not voting for Trump. And I'll say why, and they'll say, well, he's just not a Republican. He doesn't believe in the conservative principles of the party, and they go through the process. And in the end, it's hard to convince them. I say, well, look at the alternative. And they said, well, I'm not going to vote for her either. So that's where we have what I call this undecided. They're not really undecided on who they're going to vote for. They're undecided on whether they're going to vote.
Well, that's one thing that we talked about today with Bob. I think Bob's coming on your show tomorrow night, the Buckeye War Room. Is that correct, Bob France?
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's something like 42 million or something like Christians or something are like not voting at all in this election. Doesn't that defeat the purpose? I mean, that's putting the movement behind. I think it's putting your own self-interest ahead of what we need to actually be accomplishing.
Well, but I do think some of them are going to vote. They're just not going to vote for those two candidates. See, that's the other thing that's going to occur. They're going to vote for write-ins. I mean, people are pretty adamant. Whether you like Paul Ryan or not, and he was never my favorite, but he was a friend of mine when I was in Congress. Paul Ryan came out and said, I'm going to write in a candidate. And there's the perfect example. He said, neither of those candidates represent the Reagan Republican candidate that I believe in and I support. So I'm going to write in a Reagan Republican candidate. I don't know who that'll be, but I think some of that's going on as well.
And again, it's not our place to tell anybody who to vote for. I think we all understand that. But at the same time, do people, and you speak to more people than I do on this specific issue, do those people that are saying that understand the real crossroads that we are at as a nation? It's more important than ever. Look, I'm not a Trump guy. I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. I will say that up front, but I don't like Donald Trump. I really don't. And that all being said, I'm looking at my family, my groceries, my gas bills, my mortgage. I'm looking at my real world life, and I'm picking the one that makes the most sense to my real world life. If you're just voting some third party candidate that's not going to win, and you know they're not going to win, isn't that just saying my life isn't as important as my cause?
Well, I could tell you what their answer is, and look, I mean, I'm not going to argue with them when they say it. Here's what they say. Sure. 10 years, 15 years. I had one person say to me, in my heart of all hearts, I can't look at my kids and vote for Donald Trump. The other person said to me, 15 years from now, if Donald Trump takes up, now this is not me speaking. These are people that are making this decision, but they say 15 years from now, if Donald Trump wins and takes us down the wrong path and everybody complains, I'm at least going to be able to say that wasn't my person. I didn't believe in him back then. They said, so those are the arguments they're using. Now, good, bad, or indifferent, I mean, you just said it. They have the right to vote for anybody they want to vote for. And surprisingly enough, I worked for the Board of Elections for a year just so I understood how it worked in Ohio. People still vote Mickey Mouse every once in a while, too. So
I personally, again, I'm not an only Trumper. I do like a lot of what he says, but I can't in good conscience vote for somebody like Kamala Harris, who didn't even go through the process of being elected. Didn't even go through didn't get one vote to be able to run for president, much less, a candidate that I would vote for is a communist, for God's sake. I can't in good conscience vote the other side just because I hate Donald Trump.
Well, remember, most of these people are not voting the other side. They're either not voting or they're writing in, which is why turnout's going to be so important. Who turns out the most voters that support them will win this race. And especially who turns out the most voters in the 7 swing states is what's going to make a difference. We know in Ohio, Trump's going to win. Now, he may not win by that 8-point margin that he's won in the past, but he's going to win. And in the end, our state is going to go towards former President Trump. It's the states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. And by the way, those are the key states. If she's able to hold Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, which is going to be very close, I think she becomes the next president. I know people don't like me saying that, but I'm sorry. If you look at the electoral map, those 3 states are important. And that's why he's spending so much time. Both candidates are spending so much time in Pennsylvania especially, but also Michigan and Wisconsin. They're both trying to win that, as they used to call it, the blue wall.
We're taking questions, too, from people who text in. You have a question, we're happy to ask it. What about early voting? Have you seen a big difference this time around in early voting as far as Republicans are concerned?
Well, you know what's interesting, and I've been tracking early voting nationally, by state, even by locations, because I do a lot of these podcasts to talk about it. Early voting, Republican early voting is up. But you got to remember that the Republicans have told Republicans now to early vote, so that's somewhat of expected. Democrat early voting is up in Democrat areas. But Democrat early voting, for instance, in Ohio is not up. Republican early voting is up. But here's the real question that a lot of people have to ask themselves. When you look at who's voting, a supermajority of women are voting. Now, the question is, who is the... Now, we can say, well, they're Republicans. Yeah, but just because they're Republicans doesn't mean they're going to vote for Donald Trump, which is the concern I have. When I look at early voting around the country, and you look at all of this early voting, I look to the next tab, which shows that women are predominantly 60%, 57%, 59% of the early voting is the female voter.
And let's be honest, I don't think that favors the Republican Party with the platform that Kamala is running on, which is basically abortion, because she doesn't have a whole lot of other plans, but she sure as hell is saying, go out there and get your abortions.
Well, and in Ohio, by the way, that's one of the reasons why, and I could be wrong, or we can talk after November 5th, but I don't think former President Trump gets to 8% because, let's face it, we saw what happened with issue 1 back in November of last year. You know, there were a majority of Ohio voters that supported issue 1, which was the abortion issue. So, you know, if I'm running against him, which is what Kamala Harris is doing, she's going to bring up that abortion issue over and over again in states like Ohio to try and narrow the margin for candidates, especially Republican candidates. So you're exactly right.
But again, this comes down to lies, though, Jim. I mean, they talk about abortion. Donald Trump has never proposed a national abortion ban. Neither has Bernie Moreno. But, you know, Donald Trump gave the rights to the states, which is what our country is built on. The republic that we are, that's what it's supposed to be about. And yet they keep running on this platform of abortion. You can go get an abortion. You just have to go to a state that has it. Apparently you can come to Ohio and get one if that's what you'd like to do. But they don't want a national abortion ban. Why is this such a big deal?
Well, because it works. And let's face it, that's the issue. When things work, you use them. When things don't work, especially in politics, I get so many phone calls every day, people saying, well, I think Trump's winning. I think look at the majority of Republicans. I always say, wait a minute, he could be winning. But I always pull the tabs and look at what's really happening, who the early voters are. They're females. How many percent of females are going to vote against Donald Trump? Those are the questions, if I'm running his campaign, I'd be looking at and I'd be concerned about.
Right. Jim, I'm going to put a video here on the screen. This just broke, I don't know, a couple hours ago or maybe last night. I don't know if you've seen this, and it has to do with the early voting and the ballot boxes. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but apparently there's already people lighting these boxes on fire with the ballots. You know, the early voting. What happens in this type of a case? I mean, I'm assuming they can't obviously count this. I mean, does that go into the fraud that we're expecting to be a big issue come November 6th?
Well, I did see that. Let's face it. I mean, if the ballots that are in there are gone, and, you know, it's one of the reasons why we shouldn't have those ballot boxes. We should not have them. There's a perfect example. You know, now there are people that say we should only vote on election day. We shouldn't vote in advance. I don't know. I'm okay voting in advance. In fact, I've already voted. The problem is when you have these ballot boxes, though, those are just, and by the way, now that somebody saw that, what do you think is going to happen around the country?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're gonna say, hey, here's a way to destroy ballots.
Well, and then you also have the Virginia governor saying that it's okay, puts like 1,500 illegals back on the voting rolls. I mean, we have a lot of illegal problems in this country too.
Yeah, well, again, all of this stuff but that's why the election should be left to the states. You don't want the federal government overseeing it and causing problems. Just like abortion now is left to the states. Elections should be left to the states, and Ohio does a really good job with it. Only problem is Ohio does have ballot boxes, and I worry about those, but Ohio's got a good system. But let's face it, any system is going to have issues. Any system.
Sure.
I don't care if you just vote on the same day, one day, because think of it from that standpoint. How about the person that can't make it to vote that day? Is it fair that? And how about our military that are not here? They should have the right to vote too. So you got to have mail-in voters. You got to have options so that people's vote can be counted. At the same time, you got to protect the integrity of the voting as well.
I'm just waiting for them to break out online voting where all of a sudden anybody can vote from wherever you want to, because you know that's next.
You know what? It's funny you said that, because I was thinking that someday down the road, that probably will be the case, because you can have an encrypted vote. But like anything, everything we do, there's weaknesses in any system, which is why you got to test. One of the things I like about Ohio, they test the machines before, they test the machines after, they make sure that they counted properly. They have Republicans and Democrats at every location. I mean, I don't know what else you could do. I really don't know what else you could do.
I don't know either, but I know that Frank LaRose has been kind of absent in a lot of this stuff. We've asked for him to come on, and we've been declined. And I know that we've talked to, I don't know if you know Marcel Sturbich. He's big time into all this election stuff, and he talked about numerous cases of people complaining about ballot machines not working and Trump ballots being rejected by machines. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on that we don't have answers for, and I'm concerned about that this year.
Well, again, I can only tell you what I saw when I worked at the Medina County Board of Elections. I mean, these machines do not have access to computers. It's illegal to have them internet capable. All of this stuff is there. Now, can it happen? Well, I'm sure anything can happen, but I can tell you the laws are written in such a way that there should not be any way to get into the machines. They're tested before, they're tested after. Republicans and Democrats witnessed both of it. I don't know what else you can do. And I do know that there are some people complaining, but if there's evidence, I know I've talked to Frank about this, Frank LaRose. He has said, if there is evidence, present the evidence, and we will do whatever's necessary to fix those issues. And I know he's trying, but again, I don't know. When it comes to election integrity, everybody's going to complain, especially if their candidate loses.
What do you think about voter ID?
Well, I'm a big believer. When I ran for governor, I said we need to have a voter ID. Everybody should have a voter ID. If you can't afford one, the state should pay for it. If you're not a citizen, by the way, the federal law says if you're not a citizen of this country, you don't vote. That's already a law. So all of this should be put into place, and we should either have a voter ID or a qualified license that shows that you are qualified to vote. They do that in Indiana. In Indiana, they actually the state pays so that because the argument is, well, there are some people can't afford the ID. Some people can't afford the process. The state of Indiana actually pays for it, so you have that ID. I think that's one thing we should be working towards here in Ohio as well.
Jim, is the only reason that, and this is mostly Democrats, but I don't want to point at one side or the other, but is there a reason that the excuse of, African Americans can't get registered or can't get IDs as easily as other races? Is there ever going to be a time when we just say enough with this nonsense and stop pretending that that's a real thing? Because it's not. In my opinion, it's not. Maybe I'm missing something, but it just seems like we're accepting any old nonsense to let the lie keep going.
Well, I would agree with you. There's no reason that, and anybody that wants a vote can vote. Anybody that needs a vote can apply. You can do it when you get your license. I mean, there's so many ways now to register to vote that I just don't agree with that anymore. But that's always going to be the argument. One of the arguments that I'm trying to push for in Ohio is that we close the election. So in primaries, Republicans vote for Republicans, Democrats vote for Democrats. First argument I heard was, that's going to stop people from voting. Why? I mean, you're registering today on the day of the primary. Why not register in advance? You can do it on the computer. Well, then people say, well, they don't have computers. Okay, well, a friend has it. There's always a way to do it if you want to do it.
Right.
A library has a computer. There's plenty of ways to find
Right.
it. And on top of that, what's racist about needing an ID? You need an ID to get on a plane, drive a car, go to the liquor store, buy cigarettes. You need an ID for all kind of different things. I don't think it's too much to ask for an ID to vote.
100% agree. And I think we should make sure that people who vote have to show an ID, which I'm glad to see that we have voter ID in Ohio right now. I think that's important.
I mean, as a Republican, I wish they didn't ask for an ID. I'd go in there 5 times during election day and ask for different ballots so I can get who I want voted in for once. But I like to also follow the law, which means you need to have an ID to vote.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. And like I said, that's just another excuse. I mean, if somebody wants to vote, it's a simple process, and it can easily be done.
Right. Jim, I want to go away from reasons not to vote to the actual run-up right now, because there's this one. Seth and I have talked about this issue 15 different times in the last 15 weeks, and that is the just mudslinging up to straight-up lies in the advertising. I know last night I was watching the football game last night, and a Kamala ad came on that was just buried in this Project 2025, which obviously President Trump has said numerous times he has nothing to do with. It's not his thing. But they're saying this is what President Trump is going to do. It's just not truthful. It's not like it's a misnomer or it could be interpreted one way or another. The man has said, I have nothing to do with this, and they're still saying he does. How can they get away with this and not get, at a minimum, get the ad pulled for being absolutely false?
Well, one of the things I learned in politics, and it's funny you're saying that because I had to laugh. I saw an ad the other day where Sherrod Brown is saying that what Bernie Moreno is saying about Sherrod Brown when it comes to transgenders is false.
Right.
And by the way, it probably is false because the state has already voted on that. But in the end, I have to laugh because when I ran against Sherrod Brown in 2018, Sherrod Brown actually ran an ad, and the ads, he didn't run every once in a while an ad sticks. And the ad that stuck with me, and some of your listeners might remember it, was that Jim Renacci's flying around in a corporate jet with a strip club owner. And they had it on TV. It was absolutely false.
Right.
And I proved that it was false. But you know what the Election Commission said in Ohio? Hey, you're a public figure. Anybody can say anything. They can even lie about you. And my response was, well, what do I do that Sherrod Brown's lying about me? And they said, run a commercial saying that he's lying about you. Well, of course, I didn't have the funds to do that. It looks like Sherrod Brown does because he's running the ad that says Bernie Moreno's lying. So the question really comes down to, we really do need to change that. I don't care whether you're a public figure or not. You should not be able to lie about somebody.
Yeah.
Now, for your listeners, I will tell you this. You can lie about anybody that's running because they're public figures. You can't liable anybody. And that's the difference. But saying that somebody is not pro-life or that somebody supports transgenders, that's all allowable in our state and pretty much in our country. Saying somebody is a child molester or whatever, that's liable. That's not allowed.
But, okay, but I'm going to devil's advocate this for a minute, and I'm going to go specifically to Sherrod Brown and Bernie Moreno, because if you believe the ads that are running, they both should be in jail, not running for anything. It's Bernie Moreno rips off his people, and Bernie Moreno didn't pay his employees, and Sherrod Brown, he wants transgender guys to be on the swim team, and, it's nonstop with these accusations that to me seem slanderous if they're not true. At what point can we not get, look, I don't want to push more government on anybody, but in this one instance, I would love to see them just change it to, you can run on your accomplishments, but you can't run sandbagging the other guy, and have better accomplishments and you'll get ahead. Is there any way we could have that happen?
Well, you know how that happens when negative ads don't work anymore. 78% of negative ads work. 78% of people vote based on negative ads. That's the problem. So I always tell the story. It's comical. I was at the Giant Eagle in Wadsworth. I had a woman come up to me and say, "You look familiar." "Oh, I remember you. You were the one who was flying around with the strip club owner. That's why I didn't vote for you." And it was like,
wow,
ma'am, that just was not true. But that's okay. Everybody's vote is allowed, and you could vote any way you want. But you see, it was a negative ad. It worked. And that's the problem. Negative ads do work.
And the other thing that I proposed to Bob the other day, I want these people to put their names on these ads. If you're going to be an actor or you're going to be somebody that comes out in support of Sherrod Brown, I want to see your name at the bottom of the screen. I want you to actually come out and say, this is who I am, first, last name, and I'm voting for Sherrod Brown because of this. Because then I can call you out on your lies at least. Then I can at least call you out and say, I don't believe you, and get some kind of response. If you're going to put your name on something, make sure you put your name on something.
And they do make the person running the ad put their name on it. So why shouldn't we, especially, and I know what Seth is saying, especially these guys that are running the ads where I voted Democrat for the last 40 years, but this time I'm voting Republican because I believe blah, 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 whatever. And there's a bunch of those ads that are running. But who is this guy? It's, Jim from Bay Village, whoever that might be.
Paid actor. Someone getting paid to come out and give an opinion.
Exactly.
Well, it's funny you say that because there is an ad. The guy's he's sitting on his truck. He's a farmer, and he says, "I've been a Republican. I voted in 2016 for Donald Trump. I'm a solid Republican. I voted from 2020, but I'm not voting for him in 2024." And I would agree with you. I like to know who that guy is.
Yes.
But that's part of the First Amendment right. I'm telling you, this all gets down to First Amendment rights and allowing people to say anything in regards to a public official. To fix that, we have to have reforms, federal reforms, that say if you lie and it's proven you've lied, you're liable, and that would fix it. And I wish we could do that. It would make these ads be a lot different.
Now, one of the big things that go ahead, Chris, if you got something on this.
Yeah, I do. Just real quick, I'll follow up on that. If we were to get something like that on the floor or into law passed, would part of it be that if you are caught, that would also deactivate your election if you were the winner, like take them out of office because they won on false pretense?
Wow, you know what? I'm all for that, but I don't think that would pass because you got to remember some of these people get elected. I hate to say this, but if you're talking, they may all say, I don't like to run negative ads, but if you notice, they all run negative ads.
Right.
Which means everybody, and they're the ones that would vote for that legislation. So in most cases, they're the ones that would say, well, that's probably pushing a little too far. Sure. I think we should just get it to the point. If you are lying, you're liable, and put a penalty on it. $1 million. I mean, it'll change. You put a number on it that's very uncomfortable.
But even $1 million today, Jim, I mean, we're talking billions of dollars being thrown around in this election. Kamala Harris is paying $2 million to have Lizzo come and speak. I mean, $1 million fine. If they win the election, is that really that much of a penalty? That's like me fining you a lunch at McDonald's.
Well, as long as it's $1 million personal. So if it goes after you personally, that's the key. And it can be impugned on your personal side. It would make people be a little bit different right now. And by the way, a lot of these negative ads are not done by the candidate. They're done by outside money. And that's also a First Amendment right. So it's hard because then you say, okay, you're gonna fine them $1 million. Well, most of those entities go out of business after the election's over, which is one of the problems. Right. But there has to be a way of saying, okay, this entity was run by, and you can get to the bottom of it. You could subpoena, and whoever authorized the ad is then liable. That would change things.
Right. Well, let me ask one more, Seth, real quick before you change topics here. And this might just be a common sense thing, and I'm just curious, and you have worked in Washington, obviously. Do politicians, everybody knows that we the people that are being subjected to these ads really get to where we absolutely dislike to the level of hate these politicians. We just, I'm telling you, I can't stand the sight of Bernie Moreno or Sherrod Brown these days, just because every 2 seconds I get bombed with commercials if I try to watch TV. Is there any sense of caring about that? Because, and let me explain this because I want to make sure I get the right answer here, or your honest answer. We see it in the elections. They hate each other. They're wildly different. And then when the election's over, they congratulate each other and shake hands and talk about what a well-run campaign it was. We, the American people, do not react that way. We develop the hatred from watching these ads. And then once the election is over, we still have that hatred, which I honestly believe is detrimental to moving things forward once the election is over and we get to dealing with policy and getting people on board to support policy. Because we come into it, by the time they start governing, we come into it already really, really angry at a lot of these guys. And I think it's a detriment in the biggest picture to governing a state or on the federal level. Do politicians understand that, or do they not care?
Well, look, the purpose of a politician is to get reelected. So I think in the end, they really don't care. They may come on the show and tell you they do care. I mean, one of the reasons why I got out of Washington is everything we're talking about. I mean, the lies, the perceptions, I always remember when LaTourette, former Congressman LaTourette, I was just in Washington. I put this in my book. He called me to his office. I was only there a couple of weeks. And he says, can you accept lies and deceptions? And I go, what kind of a question is that? And he said, I'm asking you a question I want you to answer. And I go, absolutely not. He goes, you won't survive here. He goes, because this place was all about lies and deception. Ugh. He said, you'll have your best friend lie or deceive you just to get further ahead than you. And you know what? I saw that happen multiple times while I was in Washington. It's part of the problem because too many people want to be there. I really wanted to be there to serve. And then I realized when your service wasn't getting anything accomplished, it was time for me to leave. But there's too many people that are just locked into being there, and they'll tell you one thing, but they just worry about being reelected. The number one goal, get reelected.
Speaking of lies and outside money and everything else, and I know we have to hit on it a little bit, issue 1 is extraordinarily confusing to a lot of people, I think. The ballot language is pretty straightforward and clear, though. But both sides are saying it stops gerrymandering. And you see signs. I saw the other day a Trump sign in a yard along with a vote yes on issue 1. I think people are confused. I think people don't know what to do. People don't understand that 90% of the money coming in on the yes side of issue 1 is outside of the state of Ohio. And issue 1 is very bad for this state. True or not?
Absolutely. And, one of the things I've been doing, 2 things I've been doing for the last few months, I've been traveling the state talking about issue 1 and our Supreme Court races. We have to make sure that conservatives are elected to the Supreme Court. But when it comes to issue 1, here's what I tell everybody. I just make it very simple because I was just in a group last week. I said, how many of you like bureaucracies in our government? Nobody put up their hand. I said, how many of you like paid bureaucracies in our government? Nobody put up their hand. I said, how many? I'm going to add one more thing. How many of you like unaccountable paid bureaucracies? Nobody put up their hand. I said, how many of you would say that you do not want a paid, unaccountable bureaucracy in your country, in your state, in your city? They all put up their hand. I said, there, it's pretty easy. You've just decided what you should do on issue 1. You should vote no, because issue 1 authorizes a new bureaucracy in the state of Ohio that's paid, that's unaccountable to no one. And then I'll go, well, and I'll tell you the arguments because I heard them all that day. Yeah. This was a senior citizens group. They said, well, we don't like what's going on now. I go, well, neither do I. But if you want to fix it, make sure that it's accountable and make sure that we're not setting them another bureaucracy. So I said, look, even Governor DeWine has come out and said he thinks we need to change the system. But this isn't the right system. And I said, there's not a lot of things that I agree with Governor DeWine, but there's one. Yeah. We should not be adding another bureaucracy. So for your listeners, that's how simple it is. I don't care that there's 5 Republicans and 5 Democrats and 5 independents. And by the way, none of those 15 people can have ever worked for an elected official, been an elected official. I mean, would you ever hire somebody off the street to decide how to plumb your house or to, no. You would want to find somebody who has some expertise in it. And yet we're going to find 15 people who are supposed to be non-political, never worked for anybody, and they're going to come up with a system. I tell you, in the end, you know who's going to come up with a system? A computer and a consultant. Those 15 people are going to hire a consultant, and they're going to get a computer, and they're going to draw the districts. Why don't we just come up with a computer and a consultant, have the legislature design the process, and then let the system draw it, and that's it. That'd be the simplest thing. People just got to vote no on this. It's not a fix.
Because if you read the actual ballot language, it talks about this, quote, citizen group. And, when people hear citizens, not politicians, everybody gets excited because most people have a poor view of politicians. But it's a group that they make their own salary. They can't be voted out. They don't even, if you read, I think it's point number 8 or 9 or something in this ballot language, you can't even go to them with an opinion and tell them that you think that they're doing something wrong because that's against the bill. I mean, it's a dangerous thing that they're doing here.
Well, here's what's even funny. When I was in this room, they said, listen, it's citizens over politicians. I said, okay, hold on a second. I said, what is a politician before they ever get elected to their first office? And they said, a citizen. I said, right. But you don't like them once they're elected. 78% of people do not like politicians, elected officials. So we're gonna put, but at least you can vote them out if you don't like them. I said, in this case, you think the citizen is better than a politician, yet you have no authority to vote them out. It's just a bad situation. It really is. And I think if it's explained properly, this vote goes down. The problem is, you've already said it. There are so many people that are confused about it. They think it's issue 1 is, remember back in August of last year, vote yes on issue 1. November, vote no on issue 1. Now vote yes. They're confused. They don't understand it. And then they see that commercial. We're all citizens, and we believe citizens know better than politicians. Bingo. That is the greatest framing that the proponents of issue 1 could have ever done.
And they did the same thing here in the city of Cleveland with the Citizen Review Board on police. I don't know where these people think that this is going to help. It's just not. This is going to be horrible for the state of Ohio.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think, the citizens over politician framing was brilliant, and we didn't counteract it. Now, I'll tell you what we could have done. And here's where I blame our legislature and our governor. The governor should have called a special session, and the legislature should have put a competing ballot in place. The reason for that is when I talk to people that say, okay, I agree with you, Renacci. I don't really like this, but our alternative is leave it the same, and we don't like that. We lost those voters. We should have had a competing ballot, and we don't. That I blame our legislature and our governor, because our governor was almost going to call a special session, and then he didn't do it, and our legislature could have called a special session on their own. They didn't either. They let this go. They're to be blamed as well when it comes down to not having a competing issue.
And Tom texted in. I mean, he said that everything that we've discussed is going to be in the state constitution. This isn't something you could just get rid of tomorrow. I mean, this is like going to be there.
You know what? 100% agree. And that's the other problem. You got to do another. You got to do another initiative to remove it.
Right. I mean, otherwise you're just stuck with it.
By the way, people also forget the legislature used to do the drawing of the districts, and then we didn't like that. So we changed the law, and we said we're going to put a 7-member commission in. The governor, the auditor, the secretary of state, the majority party and the minority party, one person from the House, one person from the Senate. And that was going to change things. And this is what I was telling people. Now we don't like that, but we want to change it again. What are we going to just keep changing it? Why don't we do it right? Let's figure out a way to do it right, and then let's change it and make it the right way.
Sure. Jim, what outside of issue 1 and obviously the presidential race, what are the other important things to be looking at on November 5th?
Well, the one thing I think is important, especially in Ohio, is our Supreme Court races. We go in there. We used to, back in the 90s when I was 100% into business, I was seeing the courts basically legislating from the bench. And at that time, there was a 5-2 majority of Democrats on the Supreme Court. And everything they did was overturning laws and making decisions where they were basically legislating. So what we did as business people is we worked very hard to change that. And we ended up with a Supreme Court that was supermajority Republicans, and at one point in time, even 7 Republicans. The problem is we quit paying attention. And in 2018, We lost 2 Republicans on the Supreme Court. In 2020, we lost another Republican on the Supreme Court. Now we're at 4 Republicans, 3 Democrats. And in the end, this will become one of the, there are 2 things that are more important. I think they're the most important races in the state of Ohio right now. Issue 1, voting no. And on our Supreme Court races, voting for the candidates who are most conservative. And people really don't know the names, but it's Hawkins, Shanahan, and Dieters. Those are the 3 Republicans that people should be zeroing in on and making sure we're voting for, because we do not want the face of the Supreme Court to change again, where the Supreme Court legislates from the bench.
How do you think Bernie Moreno is going to fare on Tuesday?
I think Bernie is closing the gap. I think he's moving in the right direction. Sherrod Brown is a tough opponent. Sherrod Brown's had a lot of money. This is a Trump state. If Donald Trump wins by more than 8, I think Bernie is our next senator. If Donald Trump loses or wins by less than 8, I think it'll be difficult. Just depends on where. I mean, if Donald Trump only wins by 2 or 3, which I don't think is going to happen, it'll be tough for Bernie to win. If Donald Trump wins by 6, 7, or 8, Bernie's got a shot. And if Donald Trump wins by more than 8, Bernie will win. So that's where we're going to be. There are a lot of voters that are going to vote for Donald Trump, a lot of Democrat voters, and they're not going to vote for Bernie Moreno. I can tell you, I've experienced that in 2018. They will cross over for Donald Trump, but every other name on that ballot will be DD. It'll be a Democrat. So let's hope for the best. But right now he's moving in the right direction. I think everything's going in his favor. So we'll see. Hopefully he can pull it off.
Do you think Kucinich has a shot against Max Miller?
I don't. Look, and I hate to. Max Miller is a friend of mine. I support Max Miller. Dennis Kucinich is a friend of mine as well. I just don't think he can defeat Max Miller. And a lot of people say, how'd you ever become friends with Dennis Kucinich? Well, back in Washington, Dennis was actually a Trump proponent. When I say not the name Trump, but some of the policies of Trump, Dennis was very supportive of. So, he and I got along on some issues. There were some we totally disagreed on, but we garnished a friendship from traveling back and forth on the airplane and being in Washington, D.C. So I would call him a friend, but I don't think he can defeat Max Miller.
I will say he's a good man. I talked to him. He actually called me when I was in the hospital when I was sick, and he's a good man. I don't necessarily agree with everything that he says, but I think he's a good person.
It's hard to defeat an incumbent. Look, it's 97% of the time incumbents win. So just very difficult. When I ran against Sherrod Brown and when I ran against even Governor DeWine, both people said, you're running against incumbents. And I said, I know, but I'm running for principles and trying to change things. But it's very difficult to defeat an incumbent.
Sure. Jim, do you worry at all what's going to happen no matter which side wins wins the presidential election? Do you worry about that next day and that next week being a very rough, potentially bloody time in the streets with people? Because it just seems like that's the collision course we're on, no matter who wins.
Well, look, I think Donald Trump has already said he's going to accept the results of the election. Kamala Harris has said the same thing. I hope they stick to their words. I think we need to have an orderly transition of power no matter what. I'm hoping that we don't see that rioting on the streets. I'm hoping we don't see any of that. I'll tell you what I'm more concerned about is the Republican Party. As a diehard Republican, I do feel we have a separation in the Republican Party between Trump supporters, non-Trump supporters, and I'm really worried after November 5th what happens to those two sides. Do they come together if Trump wins? Do they come together if Trump loses? That is concerning for me because, the party has to stay together no matter what happens.
But don't you think that they will come together because the next guy will not be Donald Trump?
Well, I hope, but you got to remember, there are some people that believe the real staunch right MAGA people will say, the hell with it. The election was stolen. I'm never going to vote again. That's the concern I have.
Okay.
And then, we got to bring them back. All of these people should be part of the decision-making process, whether Donald Trump wins or loses in the future of our party. We got to make sure everybody comes back.
I could have swore Jamie Raskin said he was not going to accept the results or certify that election if Trump wins. I think there could be some issues if Trump does win this election.
Well, I think there's always going to be people to say that. People somewhat forget in 2016, and I was in the House of Representatives at that time. You can go back and watch this. At the gavel was Vice President, at that time, Vice President Biden. The Democrats were complaining that the election was stolen. The results are incorrect. We can't move forward. I'll never forget Biden putting the gavel up, pointing it at him and say, the election is over. Donald Trump is president, and he slammed the gavel down. And that ended it. I hope that no matter what happens, we move forward after this election and really, really come together as a country, because that's what we really need. Democrats and Republicans, but Republicans, MAGA Republicans, non-MAGA Republicans, we got to work together and move our country forward.
All right, so I was corrected here. A Bob France episode of the War Room will be on Thursday night, 7 p.m. on Facebook and YouTube. Tell us about the Buckeye War Room.
Well, I appreciate that. Look, the Buckeye War Room is all about the state of Ohio, but it also is about national issues. We just did a podcast regarding the national debt, for instance. Brought in Maya McGinnis from Washington, D.C. to talk about it. Hopefully your listeners can have the opportunity to look at that. See, that's one of the issues we forget about, national debt. If you look at both candidates, Harris or Trump, neither of them are addressing the national debt. In fact, both of them are going to raise the national debt. That's a problem. When I ran for Congress, the national debt was under 10 trillion. Today it's at 32 trillion. Nobody's talking about it. We brought that up in the Buckeye War Room. We had Frank LaRose talk about ballot issues, issue one. So we're trying to bring issues to Ohioans that are about Ohio elections, Ohio policy, and Ohio government, but also national government as well, and national issues.
Jim, how do we stand on national debt as a state versus the national debt versus the national debt? How do we? I mean, are we on par with the? Are we 1/50th of it, or are we better, or are we worse as a state?
Well, the state of Ohio, you're required to balance the budget, so we don't. But here's the problem with the state of Ohio is that a big chunk of the money that comes in to help balance our budget is federal dollars. So as long as we're going to take, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I believe we're probably creeping up close to, 40%, if not 50% of dollars that come in just to help us balance our budget. Now think about that. If you need 40% of the money coming in to balance your residential budget, your home budget, your business budget, that's a serious problem if they're also printing money. So, what the federal government spends way too much money. State of Ohio spends way too much money as well, but it balances it out by getting federal dollars. Our state budget is almost the same as the state of Florida's budget, yet Florida has twice the population. That should tell you that Ohio really needs to look at its spending and bring that spending down.
And what is the cause of that? Do we know? I mean, is it the loss of industry, or is it? I mean, what is it? We spend way too much on the Medicaid system. We did open up the Medicaid system during the Obama years, and Medicaid. The Medicaid system now takes up a big chunk of our budget. That might be the 50% number now that I think about it. Medicaid is a big number. And it's just growing. It's growing at such a pace that it also is moving very quickly in our state budget. So until we address Medicaid, remember, in the state budget, you really only have 4 issues. You got Medicaid spending, you got prisons, you got roads and bridges, and you got education. That's it.
And we spend way too much money in the Medicaid system right now. You know, our roads and bridges were funded by the Kasich Turnpike sell, but all that money is gone now. So we got to spend money on our roads and bridges. You know, that was a one-time shot in the arm that should have never been done. And again, our school systems, we need to look at those. You know, you don't want to, if you start talking about our school systems and think about, you know, all the overhead we had, all the overhead we have, some of these school systems are going to have to, you know, consolidate. We're just spending too much money for the population. That's really the issue.
Governor Kasich had my eyes closed there for a while. I thought he was a great guy and a great Republican, and he had me fooled. He used to stand outside smoking a cigarette, talking to him. He'd tell me to cut my hair, and I thought he was the best guy for the state of Ohio, and then I realized not so much.
He did two things. He expanded Medicaid. That was under Kasich.
Yep.
And he sold the Turnpike for a one-time shot in the arm of dollars, which we now don't have. And by the way, we now don't have the revenue from the Turnpike either.
So real quick, what's next for you? Any political aspirations on the horizon, Governor? Renacci has a nice ring to it.
Yeah, I'm going to wait until after November 5th. I've told everybody, we really need to see where we settle in after November 5th. Not that I believe there's going to be the riots that you were talking about, but I do believe there's going to be some storm after November 5th as to who wins, what direction the country's taken, do Republicans come together, all of this stuff. And I really think after that, the decision should be made. But I will tell you, there are some people running right now that I don't think are going to change anything. And I think Ohioans deserve better. So we'll see what happens after November.
Appreciate that. Well, Mr. Renacci, thank you for coming on today. Check out the Buckeye War Room on Facebook, YouTube. Again, Thursday night, 7 o'clock, Bob France will be on. So looking forward to checking that one out. But we really appreciate your time tonight. So
thank you. And for anybody who wants to learn more about what I'm doing, JimRenacci.com, JimRenacci.com. You can follow up with the Buckeye War Room and some of these other issues as well.
Great, JimRenacci.com. Well, Jim, we will have to get a hold of you after the election to see what your reaction is to all that's going to happen.
See if we're doomed.
Well, we're not going to be doomed. I will tell your listeners, we have a great country. We're going to get the Senate. We're going to have a divided government potentially. But no matter what, this government can withstand a lot of things. And especially if we're divided. If we are divided, we're not going to get a lot of these things accomplished that some people are worried about. So our country will withstand.
Well, if the power grid's still working, we will talk to you then.
All right.
Thank you so much. Talk to you, Jim.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Bye. Jim Renacci, fantastic guy. I love talking to him, and I really appreciate him taking the time, all the time, like an hour, talking to us.
Yeah, no kidding.
So that's very cool. I couldn't be more thankful to him and Tom for.
We got a lot of good information out there.
I thought so.
I learned a bunch.
Yeah, two dopey guys sitting here talking politics.
Well, that's who votes. Dopey guys, dopey girls. That's who's voting.
We are the political bloc, man. That's what That's who they're trying to get the votes from. The people like us.
That's right.
And I think Jim is a good guy and a good. He knows a lot. So check out the Buckeye War Room, and Bob France will be on there Thursday night, 7 o'clock. Should be fun.
Right on.
I want to thank everybody for listening today. I think it's time to wrap things up. Again, 3 years to the days his Triv passed away, and my heart goes out to his friends, his family, and his listeners. Everybody that listened to his show was a giant family, and I was lucky to be part of that family for almost 15 years.
That's right.
So I really do appreciate that, and I appreciate the Triv fans letting me be a part of it. So
yep, very good. All right, I guess
now
that's
back
that.
to chicken wing talk. No, Tom, I'm not talking chicken wings.
Although we could.
We could talk about chicken wings all day long. Believe me, and how they're too expensive.
Yeah, look, two fat guys. You think we don't know a thing or two about chicken wings?
I know a hell of a lot more about chicken wings sometimes than I do about anything else. And Tom, I know you have some chicken at your house that look awfully tasty.
That's right.
But Thank you, Tom, for your help with that interview as well. Everybody have a great rest of your night. God willing, we'll talk to you on Wednesday, and then we'll have extra content on Minds on Wednesday. If you like what you hear during the regular show, you're really going to like what you hear after the regular show on Wednesdays.
Yeah. It's this, but dirty.
Yeah, it's a little dirty, but spend $5. It'll get you through a month of extra stuff, or hell, spend $50. It'll get you a year of it.
Yeah, that's right. Still waiting for that guy. We're still waiting for that guy.
Well, hey, we haven't been the most reliable at times. Let's just be honest.
That's true.
But we're going that way. We're headed in that direction. We've been doing it religiously.
Mm-hmm.
So check it out, minds.com for the extra content on Wednesdays. But everybody else have a great rest of your nights and a great week. And we will talk to you then. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, my friends.
All right, see ya.
Seth Williams loves this land, stands tall and proud. Believes in freedom, speaks his mind out loud. Mentored by Triv, he learned to be tough. Life knocked him down, but he got back up. Lost a leg, but he's still strong and true. Chasing dreams under skies of red, white, and blue. Voting for Trump, he shouts it clear. WTAM tried to bring him down, but he's still here. In the heart of America, Seth takes a stand. Against the tides, he defends our land. Liberals call him crazy, but he don't care. He's got the spirit of an eagle, soaring high in the air. Hates LeBron James, won't wear that crown. Prefers hard work and blue jeans in this town. Radio waves try to shut him up, but Seth keeps singing, filling that cup. From the small town streets to the mountain high, Seth sees the flag waving, reaching for the sky. He keeps on fighting with a rebel yell, for every fallen soldier and the stories they tell. In the heart of America, Seth takes a stand. Against the tides, he defends our land. Liberals call him crazy, but he don't care. He's got the spirit of an eagle, soaring high in the air. From the small town streets to the mountain high, Seth sees the flag waving, reaching for the sky. He keeps on fighting with a rebel yell, for every fallen soldier and the stories they tell. In the heart of America, Seth takes a stand. Against the tides, he defends our land. Liberals call him crazy, but he don't care. He's got the spirit of an eagle, soaring high in the air.
Looking to sell your car quickly and for top dollar? At buyyourcars.net, we make it easy. Whether your vehicle is new, used, or even damaged, we'll buy it in any condition. Fast offers, quick cash, and hassle-free transactions. What more could you ask for? Just visit buyyourcars.net, enter your vehicle information, and get a fast offer within minutes. Ready to sell? Call us today at 770-815-0342 or fill out the contact form at buyyourcars.net. Get cash fast for your car the easy way. Buyyourcars.net. Selling your car has never